We are moving on. Diagnostic testing. See, last week was a big week. All right, we are back, and this one is from Duke. He's writing all about diagnostic testing, and these are the types of tests that are basically done for those that are in our community. Let's start off with the most common one that everybody believes is the only one that gives you accurate imagery. And this is just simply not true. Okay, this is the one that's going to be done in the ER, even if you are allergic. Okay, they are still going to give you pre medication or a CT scan. They're going to pre-medicate you typically with prednisone in your IV and Benadryl as well. If it's an emergency, they'll put everything in the IV. So you're going to be wired and falling asleep simultaneously as you're waiting for the scan, and because it works a lot quicker. I think it's like an hour protocol. And don't freak out when I say it could be an hour before you're allowed to have the test if you're in the emergency room. It's what you need. It's that or possibly going to anaphylaxis if you have a high degree of allergic reaction to CT dye. They just can't do it dry. It's just not going to be the same quality test. So, but they may, but it's not typically how it's done. Okay. So let's talk about CT scan and what it's all about. So the CT scan gives doctors a 3D image of your aorta. Okay. And it's basically essentially like having many x-rays done at once. And I know when we hear that, that's also kind of scary because people have had these memes going around that, oh my God, I just heard a CT scan's like smoking 86,000 cartons of cigarettes. All right, don't read half the stuff you get on the internet. Ugh, I shouldn't even have to say that. Talk to your doctor. Talk to the doctor of radiology. Ask the question from the people who are doing these tests, okay? It's a cost benefit analysis. I think I had 15 CT scans in my first year. And if I turn off the light right now, I guarantee you I'm not glowing. I'm okay. It's okay. It's really okay. The CT and the abdomen or CTA allows for detailed visualization colloquially. If you know, you know, visualization, it's going to be one of those days, of the entire aorta from the chest down to the groin. And a CT scan, they're used to diagnose aortic dissections and to plan for any kind of aortic surgery. And as we heard from Dr. Fisher, they're kind of also doing 3D printing of the aorta based off of these scans, which is even a more detailed way of determining what kind of surgery they're going to do because they can actually get in there. And now they're doing VR, is that what it's called? And they're going to like, video game, wear those goggles and travel through your actual
I am
aorta.
so excited when she
I'm so
lets us
excited.
see that. Oh man.
God, I cannot wait. I'm so excited. Um, all right. So these are used to plan for the treating or just to do it as a routine image for patients. And typically it's every year or every 6 months, what have you. These are for patients that we know have aneurysms or other conditions of the aorta. And when a patient undergoes a CT scan, they are typically giving something called contrast dye. This is very different from gadolinium, which we're going to talk about in a minute, which is given with an MRI. All right. So this contrast dye is going to be injected into your arm. So you're going to have an IV placed before you have the CT scan. And this dye will actually allow the doctors to see the structure of the aorta in even greater detail. You would typically get a gated CT scan, and you can ask, is this a low dose radiation machine? More times than not, they are, but you're entitled to ask those questions, okay? And we're going to talk about the dye in a little bit. So this is what the CT scan will show. You can see 99% sure we've got spine right here. Yeah, okay. Don't ask me, but I know I see a dissection right here, clear as day. I know that. I'm gonna guess this is some type of organ going into intestines. Just my guess here again. But that's a dissection right there. Watch, I'm wrong, but I think I'm
It's
not.
it's like a liver, stomach, heart, and aorta, and you're
Something,
over here
yeah.
like there's a spine.
Over here. Well, over here, I mean, that's vertebrae. It is. This is stomach going into intestine, lung. I don't know. It's one of those things, but I know this is an aorta. I do know that. I didn't say I was a radiologist, just a person. Let's talk about the CT scan dye real quick for a second and let's get real. you're gonna have this IV in you, and you're gonna get saline. And then they're going to tell you, okay, we're about to give you the dye. And it's going to get pushed by a machine pretty quickly. And you're going to feel it go into your arm. And it typically does not burn like it hurts, not like that. But you're going to feel the warmth travel up your arm, go across your chest. You may even feel it in your head, get a little heavy feeling. And you're going to feel it as it travels down your body. And when it gets into your pelvic region, you're going to feel like you have to pee. And I mean, feel like you got to pee pretty bad. If this is your first time having one, you may even want to squeeze the squeezer in the machine to be like, I gotta pee. And by the time you even get that sentence out, the sensation's going away. This dye is just, it's wild. I think it's every time I used to have it, I was like, here comes the pee feeling. I'm just being real. This is what it feels like so that you can prepare yourself. Me personally, I used to take prednisone and Benadryl beforehand because I know I'm allergic. And the way I found out I was allergic, because I get asked this a lot, is the very first time I had a CT scan unrelated to this. In the middle of it, once the dye hit, I started feeling like I had a million bees stinging me on my arm. Just, it came on very quickly. And then I started feeling like I couldn't catch my breath. And so they gave me a drug to counteract it, and everything was fine. So now I pre-medicate before I would have a CT scan. However, there's Omnipaque and Visipaque. These are two different types of contrast dye. And you would think that if you pre-medicate and they give you one or the other, that you would still be fine. Well, I have proven to know that that is not true. Locally, I would always go to one particular hospital or radiology clinic uh, center, and they gave one of those particular dyes. Let's just say they gave Visipaque. And then I went to a sister hospital, and even though I was pre-medicated, by the time I got home, I started developing across my entire torso, front and back, what looked like a second-degree burn. And it was very painful, very hot, bright red. It was like that for almost 2 weeks while I was still on prednisone. And that was because they gave me Omnipaque. And so I had to do research because that's just how I am. And I wanted to know what kind of dye they gave me. And so because I had breakthrough reaction, I'm now not a candidate to have a scheduled scan with dye. So unless it's life or death and I'm in the ER, I think that they would still try to give me an MRI. If it was life or death, they would try their best to pre-medicate me heavily and then give me that very quick 5 to 7 minute CT scan. So that's another bonus of a CT. Okay. So that's just me. I'm an anomaly. I'm a freak. Weird things happen. Just letting you know and just being real and sharing everything with you. I particularly like MRI scans, which we're going to talk about now because I fall asleep in them and I have some really great dreams. Others that suffer from claustrophobia, uh, I get it. Oh, I just remembered. Part of the aortic team we were talking about before, hypertension specialist. Word just came to me. Just letting you all know. Okay, MRI scan. It's used as an alternative to a CT scan. Doesn't say it's better or worse. It's just an alternative. It provides great visualization of the aorta in very fine detail as well. But it uses a different technology. So this one does not involve any radiation. So if you're someone that has to have a lot of CT scans, I would recommend having a conversation with the ordering physician about the option of doing an MRI scan. One, there is no contrast dye. It's gadolinium. It's very different. Two, there is no radiation. Three, it's going to be longer, 40 minutes, half hour, somewhere in there. So if you're claustrophobic, again, don't ask about it. But if you're concerned about radiation exposure, definitely ask about it. And it's noisy. You know, they're going to give you earplugs. Some places will give you a headset where you can listen to some music. Sometimes MRI is not widely available in all hospitals, and it's usually not employed in an emergency situation, which we've already talked about. So one reason why a lot of people can't undergo an MRI is because they have certain metals in their body, such as a pacemaker. So there's a variety of reasons why people might not be able to use an MRI. Some of the things that I know a lot of people are just starting to consider would be for women, there's an eyeliner that is magnetic to lashes. You would need to not wear those that day, right? If it's magnetic and these eyelashes, after you put the eyeliner on, these eyelashes attach, that is magnetic. Do not wear that into an MRI machine. If you are wearing a clonidine patch or any other patch with that metallic background that sticks to you, you will not be able to wear that in the machine. If you have body piercings, you're not going to be able to wear those. You're going to have to take them from wherever they are in your body. You're going to have to take them out. Now, usually you can leave wedding bands in. I can feel stones vibrate a little, so I tend to hold them in my hand. I turn my wedding band around, I hold it in my hand. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're going to have an MRI, internal metal, external metal, and that's why they ask you a million questions. But if you can do it, talk to your doctor about it because the pictures are going to be fine. Okay. Here's your MRI scan machine. This is not like, so a CT doesn't have a tube that you go through. CT is just this round circle. So it's pretty open. MRI, you're going into that chamber. Okay. You're going in. See, it's much longer. You're going to be in that chamber. All right. And echocardiography, or an echo, as we call it. So this uses ultrasound to visualize your aorta and your heart and the structures and the valve, the measurements, the function, does a whole lot, okay? Uh, Echocardiography is pretty quick. It's benign. It's useful. It helps assess your heart function, how well your valve is opening and closing. So if you have stenosis or regurgitation, it can report back to what degree it is. There's also something called a transthoracic echo, or a TEE, and that can be done bedside. It's not a scan of your entire aorta. So for that, you still need a CT scan or an MRI. So an echo, you're awake, and they're like any other ultrasound using a wand. If you've had open heart surgery, or if you're female, there are some areas that they want to rub, let's say, on the outside of your breasts or in the center of your breastbone that might be uncomfortable. No more uncomfortable than mammography, than a mammogram. Doesn't last long. Initially, after I had my open heart, I think it was more in my mind, but if they're pushing too hard in the upper part, it might agitate you from the wires perspective, but it's not going to be painful. Okay, sometimes it's more in your mind, like it's going to hurt. A TEE, transthoracic echo, you're going to typically be put under some sedation because they're going to go in through your mouth, down your esophagus, or a transesophageal echo, which we're going to talk about in greater detail. This was just a transthoracic echo. So this is kind of what the echo probe looks like, rubbing on your skin, right? And we're going to see what that echo image looks like here. So here it is. Ascending aorta, left ventricle, something. I don't remember what they all stand for. I've looked at mine a million times and I look at them, but I am far from a professional on this. If you told me, oh, this looks like it might be the root and we might be here at the valve area. Very well could be. I love asking questions. If I can see, if I can stretch my neck far enough, I'm like, what are we looking at? Show me this. And of course, I'm not going to tell me if anything's good or bad, but I always assume that it can't be too bad, because if it was too bad, they would say, wait here for just a minute. And they would go get a physician and make a phone call. And I've known that to happen to just a tiny bit of people, but it doesn't happen to me, so that's good. So yeah, transesophageal echocardiogram would be one where they're going to put you under some twilight sleep and place a probe down your esophagus, which allows them to get really close to your heart and have some really good images that way. So they tend to do that on schedule. I don't really know many people that have ever said they've had a TEE while waiting for potential surgery due to an emergency. Your typical number one gold standard that they're going to go to in an emergency is going to be that CT scan. In doing some rapid fire follow-ups, it's typically CT and or echo, or MRI and or echo. So again, food for thought with your doctors. Ask the questions why they choose what they choose. And, if you're cool with 45 minutes or a half hour in a machine and you don't have all of the things that are going to prohibit you from doing it, like metals in your body and stuff like that, ask your doctor about the idea of maybe switching to an MRI. Otherwise, if you're good, stick with CT. It's fast, it's easy, great pictures. If you don't mind that warm sensation, you're good to go. And if you're cool with the radiation exposure, then it should be fine.
All
So
right.
just food for thought to talk with your doctors about.